And thanks very much for the invitation. I've been fascinated by this Citizens' Assembly, so it's great to be here and see who's involved. So thank you. I'm from Sligo. I don't farm in the mountains, but I farm right beside them in the kind of, as I like to say, the rain shadow of the Ox Mountains in South Sligo. We're sheep and beef farmers there, and I'm involved with the Irish Natura and Hill Farmers Association. I'm the Sligo representative on their National Council. So we were asked to tell a little bit about our organisation. The INGFA, as was said earlier, was set up 2015-16 that time, and it was in response to the sense of alienation and a feeling of farmers who were on the lands of kind of hill designated or environmentally valuable land, that they were being thrown a bit under the bus in terms of policy, and that they needed a dedicated voice to represent their interests. They're a nationwide organisation, but obviously they follow a geographical pattern in the country because that's where the interest is. And interesting to hear the comments of a lot of speakers here. They are working for the recognition of the environmental goods we produce as well as the food in terms of how we are designing policy. I didn't approach this, I'm sorry now, from my own farm perspective. I was trying to reflect the views of our members, and you asked us to consider successes. Now, one thing I will say about farmers is they respond to policy. Farmers follow policy. Their income frequently depends on it. But one of the keys there is we can use policy if it's used properly and designed well to make major changes. But what if the policy is poor? A lot of the speakers have already mentioned the issue over the eligibility of land. And this has been disastrous in the last couple of rounds of CAP for destruction of habitat in this country. This is a direct quote, you probably can't read it. This is exactly from the guidelines the Department of Agriculture sends to every farmer, and they must adhere to it, and it's heavily policed, and they can lose their income if they don't adhere to it. They're told that they must do whatever means necessary. They must areas of scrub must be controlled. They must prevent new forms of scrub forming. They must prevent the development of hedgerows spreading into their fields. They must drain their land, which is very ironic given the conversations now. We must drain our land because any wet areas will be deemed as ineligible. That is the current rule, and as I think James Moran pointed out, that's in place till December. But the problem farmers have is these rules are changing, perhaps on a 5-year cycle, but you can't change farming on those terms. And there is no long-term commitment to farmers that what will happen to these eligible areas. Will they still be eligible when you create space for nature? There is no guarantees for farmers on this area. And there is a very significant risk they will no longer be classed as eligible areas for agriculture. And just to say, that if they lose this area, they lose income. That's been well illustrated by the speakers today. The image there is of the Farmers' Journal for this week. Plantaruette farmland blasted as land grab. And that is how a lot of farmers feel at the moment, particularly where I come from. Pat McCormick referred to the mental health issues in farming. Farmers are very concerned about everything that they have understood they were supposed to do as a good farmer for the last 150 years or more is now being talked about, being turned on its head. Now, I'm not saying that's not a bad idea, but I'm just saying it's a huge sea change in thinking about farming, and they will need a lot of help to get around this. Barriers to success in terms of developing policy and work around this area, I think there is a perception, and it's come up a lot again today, that rules are imposed. Maybe a sentence is written at a desk somewhere a lot further away from farmers, and often with little or no consultation with the people it's going to impact. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of concern that people feel that their very way of life, as well as their livelihood, is being threatened by what's being proposed at the moment. And there's huge concern around the nature restoration law and what that may mean for the country, but certainly for all along the West Coast. Because of bad experiences with the National Parks and Wildlife Service and the department, farmers don't trust policymakers. Our members don't trust them. And they have reason, because farmers have been treated very badly on designated lands in the past. They were encouraged to accept these decisions. They didn't know they were coming. They were encouraged to accept them, and there was payment for a couple of years in terms of the REP scheme, but when the REP scheme has gone, there has been no further compensation for the impacts of these designations. And they're not simply a designation. There is almost 40 rules, and they cover virtually every aspect of farming on those farms. And the majority of them have real cost associated with them. So it is a real problem, and it has damaged trust. Sorry now, I'm just going to quickly show you the slide. What I have difficulty with the new agri-environment scheme, it says it's been targeted at the most appropriate areas in the country. Now, what the map is showing, the coloured areas is the more intensive cooperation element of the scheme, and it is all open to farmers outside there. But they are focusing, and you have to have a priority asset to get into the scheme, and that's great for using your resources and maximising your resources. But what about the rest of the country, which pretty much reflects the white areas? You know, what about the south, southeast? Are you expected to live in a dirty environment or a damaged environment? And our national balance sheet will look okay, but the overall may not. Or the overall will, but the individual experience of that. Sorry, now I'm having to. And my last slide, we were asked about what would improve agriculture and biodiversity. It's design interventions specifically with farmers, and this has come out quite a bit all morning, in the local areas, because there is huge variation. Now, I think there will be work done towards that, but we really do need it. The new cooperation scheme, we have no idea how it's going to work, whether farmers will be able to sit down with the new cooperation teams that will be designing the policy for farmers. We have no detail or information on how that will work. And it's come out a lot. We do need farmers remove biodiversity because of policy and because of income. If we are serious about turning around the climate crisis, we have to reward farmers for the environmental goods that they're producing. Farmers respond to policy, and if we reward it, and if their market, if part of their market is for the environment, they will deliver it, and deliver it quickly. But we need to get behind that. And there has to be long-term commitment. That has come up as well. And I think treat farmers with respect. Treat them as the experts they are, as well as the other experts. And you can work and rebuild trust in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Aideen. Thank you very much.